Revealed, the sinister rules for surviving haunted nights at a motel in northern Manitoba. The Johnsons thought they could escape their grief on this road trip. But little did they know, fate had other plans. They were about to confront the terrifying truth that some places hold secrets best left buried. As dusk settled, the family found themselves pulling into a rundown roadside motel. The neon sign flickered like a heartbeat, casting eerie shadows that danced against the cracked pavement. The air grew thick with tension, as if the land itself breathed deeper in the presence of the lost. Lisa's heart sank at the sight, a guttural instinct warning her this place was off. But Mark, wanting to lighten the mood, pushed the door open, revealing a musty, dimly lit room. The wallpaper peeled like old skin, revealing cracks and stains from a time forgotten. "What's wrong?" "It's not so bad," Mark laughed, but his words fell flat. The whole place felt heavy. Emma, their little girl, wrapped herself in the thin, threadbare blankets, her bright eyes sparkling with the thrill of new adventure. But Kyle stood just inside the door, arms crossed, his expression draped in skepticism. That night, as the sky turned pitch black, echoes of soft whispers drifted through the walls as if the very building held its breath. Mark dismissed it, chuckling about the wind whispers of the past, maybe? But Lisa could feel the cold seeping in, beyond the chill in the air. It pricked at her bones, like fingers poking at old wounds. "Mom, do you believe in ghosts?" Emma asked curiously, her innocence a stark contrast to Kyle's furrowed brow. "The kids at school say some people who stay here they never come back." Kyle shot her a look, but Emma only giggled, thinking it was a silly story. With every flicker of the fluorescent lights, Mark's bravado weakened. Shadows glided just out of view, stretching, bending, mocking them. When a sudden crash erupted in the neighboring room, for the first time, doubt flickered in Mark's eyes. "Let's just check it out," he said, heart racing. Eyes darting around, Kyle edged closer to Lisa. "You can't seriously believe we're alone." "Let's stay together," Lisa urged, trying to calm her own rising panic as the odor of mildew grew stronger, taking on a sickly sweet edge. Suddenly, Mark knelt, strange articles suddenly catching his eye beneath the warped floorboards, faded pages from the past. Names. Faces. A collection of those who vanished, echoes forever lingering inside this cursed place. Kyle's face drained of color. "Dad, what if stop it, this is just your imagination?" Mark exclaimed, trying to rein in his fear. But it was too late. "What if they never left?" Kyle whispered, his voice trembling. Emma clutched the blankets tighter, sensing the shift. The walls tightened around them. They could feel eyes watching them, that unsettling elder man lingering just outside their door, too calm, too knowing. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Dread hung palpably in the air as the wind howled outside, mixing with murmurs of long-lost guests, shadows crooning lullabies of despair. Hope turned to stark terror as Emma's laughter echoed ever so distant, making the darkness feel colder. Kyle's tension was palpable, bubbling over. They were not alone. Then came the crash again. A deafening sound from the room next door, sending them into a frenzy. The air turned electric, and the door rattled against its frame. Fear clawed at their minds, the motel's sinister secrets beckoning. They hovered together at the edge of a dark abyss, standing in the face of horror as whispers grew louder, more demanding. What awaited them behind the walls? In a place where hope faded and nightmares clawed through the night, they could only wonder, would they escape, or were they destined to be just another story lost in the whispers of northern Manitoba? Mark's heart raced, echoing the frantic thump of shadows dancing in the corner of his vision. "We should go," he exclaimed, eyes darting to the peeling door, the noises growing more frantic, a violent rapping that sounded like fists against wood. He turned to Lisa, desperation etched across his face. "We need to find the manager or get out of here." But Lisa shook her head, frozen in place. "It might be dangerous out there," she whispered, terror creeping into her voice. The air felt thick, suffocating. Emma giggled again, and a chill ran down Lisa's spine. It was the kind of laughter that echoed in empty spaces, void of joy, holding an unsettling weight. Kyle's eyes were wide, reflecting the stark overhead light. "What if it's not just noises?" He glanced at the door. "We have to know what's happening." With a resigned sigh, Mark led the way, step by step, as if the floor might swallow them whole. Each creak beneath their feet cradled whispers, an ensemble of lost voices urging them on or warning them back. They stood still outside the neighboring door, shadows shifting in the feeble light from their own room. Mark raised a fist, trembling slightly, but hesitated. A sudden crash erupted, rattling the frame and drowning out all reason. Without thinking, his fist collided with the wood, and he yelled, "Hello. Is everything all right in there?" Silence fell, wrapping them tightly like a straitjacket. A moment stretched into eternity, each second culminating in their mounting dread. The stench seeped from under the door, thick and cloying, as if death had made this space its den. Then, from inside, a low voice slithered through the cracks, soft but filled with menace. "You shouldn't be here." A breath escaped Mark's lips, and Lisa instinctively gripped Emma tight. "This is a mistake," Kyle whispered, panic rising. The world shook in the silence that followed, leaving their hearts pounding loudly in their ears. "I think we should leave," Emma murmured, eyes wide as saucers. Her small fingers clawed at the blanket, anxiety spilling over her innocent facade. "Wait," Mark interrupted, pulling Emma behind him. "Let us listen." The rumbling grew louder, drowning out the sound of their breaths, the whispers now rising to a crescendo. He pressed his ear against the battered door, willing himself to distinguish between the chaos of sound and the unmistakable sense of dread. "Help me please," a voice gasped. It was garbled and distorted, but his stomach dropped as though he recognized it somehow. "I'm still here," Mark jerked back, eyes glued to the door, thoughts racing. What just happened? But the questions faded into the horror that loomed behind the door. Then the whispers broke free, fluttering in the air like frightened birds, swirling around them. "You must leave, do not stay." A loud crash erupted again, more aggressive this time, as the door flew open, swinging wide with an energy of its own. Silhouettes loomed in the dim light, figures that were not quite human. They watched, unblinking, shades of lost souls trapped in a liminal space, gliding through the edges with hollow eyes. Lisa's scream pierced the night as the air thickened with the weight of despair. They staggered back, their hearts racing, caught in a web of fear. Lisa grabbed Mark's hand, fear manifesting in a tense grip. "Run!" Mark shouted. As they stumbled backward into their room, the door slammed shut behind them, sealing whatever horrors had just been unleashed. They pressed against the cool wood, gasping for breath, adrenaline coursing through them like fire. Mark turned to face his family, panic etched into every feature. "What the hell is going on?" Emma's small voice broke through the chaos, soft and trembling. "The man," he said. "He's still here." The air shifted, tension twisting like a knife in gut. They were no longer fighting the motel's ghosts, they were being dragged into their story, and all escape routes felt ominous. "Listen," Kyle whispered, his voice low and urgent. "We have to find a way to get out, but if the manager's involved." Before he could finish, the lights flickered violently as whispers swelled into screams. The room trembled, shadows swirling like a tempest. The door rattled again, testing its frame as if something on the other side was desperate to join them. "Are we stuck in here?" Emma asked, wide-eyed. They stood in a wretched moment of silence, swallowed by dread, as the door began to open again. What new horrors awaited them beyond? In this unfolding nightmare, were they just another chapter in the motel's blood-soaked history, or could they wrest a chance to escape? The door creaked slowly, revealing a darkness that felt alive. Mark's breath hitched as he locked eyes with Lisa, desperation mirrored in their gazes. "What do we do?" she mouthed, the words barely escaping her trembling lips. "Stay close," he whispered back, stepping forward as if he could shield them from the unknown. The air was dense with a foul stench, a rotting blend of decay and something older, something ancient. He felt a wave of nausea hit him as he peered into the darkness. It was as if the shadows beckoned him, promising secrets wrapped in a shroud of terror. Kyle, a few steps behind, pressed his hand against Mark's shoulder. "We can't just stand here. We need to see something." His voice cracked, betraying the fear coursing through his veins. A flicker of light broke through the crack. Mark squinted, trying to discern forms in the gloom. He could hear soft, whispering voices, swirling around like mist. "Help me!" It was repetitive, each plea a haunt, a relentless echo tied to the very essence of despair. Regardless of what lurked, they knew they couldn't remain in their cell any longer. With trepidation, Mark pushed the door wider, revealing a dim hallway stretching before them. The walls were peeling, like the fragile skin of an old wound. Stains marred the floors, a sinister tapestry of darkness and despair. "There's got to be an exit somewhere," Lisa urged, her eyes darting in every direction, hungry for reassurance, but all she found was dread. The silence felt oppressive, yet the constant whispers coiling around them made it even worse. As they slipped into the passage, a sudden gust rattled the lights above. The shadows morphed along the wall, faces of the forgotten flickered momentarily, their mouths forming silent screams that pierced through the film of gloom. "Did you see that?" Emma pointed with a small, trembling finger, her innocence shattered. Mark's heart sank. "We need to keep moving," he said hurriedly, pulling Emma tight against him. In that moment, he felt a surge of protectiveness, but doubt gnawed at his sanity. A distant thump echoed, thud, 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 growing louder, heavier. They pressed on, desperation stole any rational thought. Around a corner, they entered what looked like a common area, the furnishings draped in dust, untouched and forsaken. Suddenly, a picture frame swung down from the wall, shattering against the floor. The jagged shards glinted like fangs. "What was that?" Kyle yelled, backing away, eyes wide with horror. "It's like it's angry," Lisa murmured, her voice almost lost to the overwhelming fear. Thump. The sound vibrated beneath their feet, followed by a low, thrumming pulse. It seemed to resonate from the walls, a living heartbeat of the motel itself, and with it came a sinister whisper that curled around them like smoke. "Stay, you must stay." "No!" Mark shouted, instinctively stepping in front of Emma. "We want tea." He grabbed Lisa's arm, ready to drag them in the opposite direction when a door, hidden behind stacks of boxes, suddenly swung open. A figure stood silhouetted in the doorway, face obscured, but the familiar outline sent a shockwave through Mark. "Help me," it hissed, voice tinged with a mindless desperation. From the shadows came that same distorted voice, "You shouldn't have come here." Suddenly, the lights exploded with a blinding flash. Shadows writhed and danced, disorienting them, echoing with torment. "What do we do?" Kyle wailed, as the entity in the doorway stepped forward, revealing eyes blacker than night. "Run!" Mark screamed, and they bolted toward the exit as the hallway convulsed around them, walls shuddering like the very grip of the spirits within. But the exit lay beyond unreality, beyond reach, as the very structure seemed to shrink and twist, locking them deeper into its horrifying embrace. Would they escape, or were they destined to join the souls trapped in torment forever? The whispers crescendoed, promising answers, but only deepened their perilous plunge into horror. The hall stretched endlessly before them, painted in shades of despair and sinister anticipation. Mark pushed through the chaos, dragging Emma and Lisa with him as they stumbled, breathless and wide-eyed. The pulse of the walls intensified, reverberating like a drumbeat, urging them to the heart of the darkness. "Where are we going?" Kyle's voice cracked, laced with panic. He glanced back, and the figure was gone. Relief washed over Mark for a split second until a new dread swelled in his chest. "Just keep moving," he gasped, urgency fueling his legs. They barreled forward, scrambling past dilapidated chairs and moldy curtains that floated like ghosts in the stale air. Each step felt like a trial, a race against the unrelenting tightness of the corridor that threatened to crush them. Shadows danced just beyond reach, flickering, looming, taunting them, always just out of sight. "Is there really a way out?" Lisa hissed, her voice quaking, glancing over her shoulder as if the darkness itself might answer. What was that voice? Mark could only shake his head, knowing the unspeakable truth thrumming through his mind like a relentless electric shock. That voice, the same pleading tone they'd heard just moments ago, echoed behind them now, twisting through the air. "Help me please." They rounded another corner, and an icy breeze rushed at them, a shivering reminder of the grave danger lurking not just ahead, but all around. The walls, now slick with dampness, felt alive, as if twisting tendrils were reaching out, hungry for their essence. The group halted abruptly in a small, kitchen-like space with rusted metal cabinets and grimy counters littered with discarded remnants of food, gone long past ruined. Flies buzzed stubbornly, feeding on the decay. Embedded in the cracked floor was a single tarnished knife, perfectly poised as if waiting for the next act of desperation. "Look!" Emma squeaked, pointing towards the far end where a broken window gaped like a wounded mouth. A glimmer of moonlight peeked through, offering a hint of hope, but darkness swirled thick outside, mocking the brightness, promising endless night. "We might as well try," Kyle started but was interrupted by another terrifying thud. A relentless voice bellowed, "You shouldn't have come here." The doorway they had just escaped from warped and twisted as if the darkness itself was pulsating with anger. The figure re-emerged, only this time, it was accompanied by a legion of shadowy forms, contorted and raging. Mark's fingers tightened on Lisa's wrist. "We have to get out." The fear coursed through him, igniting a primal urge to survive. "Over there." Lisa pointed again, her voice rising in urgency. "The basement door. Maybe we can hide." Debating just for a moment, Mark clenched his teeth. "We can't. What if it's worse down there?" But then the wall shuddered, and from its cracks, faint glimmering eyes appeared, filled with ancient sorrow and wrath. The basement door creaked open with a low groan, releasing a gust of stale air that smelled of mildew and something metallic. Their hesitation hung like a noose. Then came another thunderous bang, as if the very foundation threatened to collapse upon them. "Now!" Mark yelled. They dove into the basement, pulling the door shut just as shadows converged outside. The world above thundered with their torment. The smell intensified, wrapping around them like a cloak of despair. They stood together in the dark, edges blending into the obscurity filled with the whispers just beyond their reach. As the heavy silence seeped in, the temperature dropped sharply. They could feel the weight of unseen eyes, the presence of countless souls watching, waiting. Then, a soft hiss echoed from the depths, seductive yet chilling. "You've chosen the right path. But beware, for not all who enter leave." Mark felt his heart race, fear engulfing him like flames. The basement was not the refuge they sought, it was a maw opening wide to swallow them whole. Who's down here?" Emma's voice barely broke the thick silence, but dread twisted in the air like a coiling serpent. The dark began to shift and swirl, revealing twisted forms of lost souls trapped in an eternal lament. Mark's throat tightened at the sight, the realization of their fate reflected in every anguished gaze. The whispers intensified, a chorus of warnings and prophecies. "You are part of this nightmare now." Was there truly no escape from this hell? The basement seemed to pulse with life as they held each other, a small beacon flickering within the encroaching dark. What could they possibly do to turn the tide, to fight against what sought to claim their very essence. Uncertainty gnawed at his mind, racing thoughts spiraling toward the grasp of dread. The whispers crescendoed, a gathering storm. Next time you think about help, the hissing grew louder, penetrating their senses. Remember, it may not be what you expected, and in that moment, Mark realized the depths of their choice. What lay ahead was far worse than any nightmare they could imagine, but they were already part of the story. What else could unfold in the shadows lurking beyond? The air was thick with an unshakable chill, wrapped around them like the shadows themselves. Mark's heart pounded, the rhythm echoing in his ears, drowning out the whispers swirling in the darkness. Can we just leave? Kyle's voice trembled, his eyes darting frantically to each corner where the darkness seemed to breathe. I didn't sign up for this. No one did, Lisa snapped, her voice steely despite the fear swirling in her eyes. We have to think. What did that voice mean? The whispers intensified, enveloping the group like a fog of dread, each murmur pressing like fingers against their temples, urging them to succumb to despair. Listen closely, a voice broke through, clearer now, bursting through the clamor. It was low and menacing, filling the room with an oppressive weight. Not all shadows are enemies, some offer guidance, if you dare to seek. Guidance? Emma whispered. Her face paled even more as recognition flickered in her eyes. Do you think? But before a full thought could form, a haunting laughter cut through the air, seeping through the cracks of their deepest fears. Choices, choices, the voice drawled, almost playful now, dancing around the edges of their terror. You must play the game to know the truth. Game? Mark spat, trying to drown out the rising panic that threatened to choke him. What game? We're not interested in playing anything. Ah, the voice hissed, the pitch of delight rising as if they had given away a hidden card. But you already have, with every step you took into the darkness. The rules have been set. Mark clenched his jaw, sweat trickling down his back. What are the rules? Simple, the voice answered, and shadows twisted and shrank, revealing bizarre forms, flickering shapes that wove in and out of clarity. Survive until dawn or become a part of the shadows. What does that even mean? Lisa shouted, her words barely keeping the dread at bay. How do we survive? Sacrifice for knowledge. The room shifted unsettlingly. Whispers threaded their way around them, words barely comprehensible, yet palpable with threat. Mark felt the floor pulse beneath his feet, could almost hear the desperate cries of lost souls integrating into the dark fabric surrounding them. Sacrifice who? He demanded, fear igniting his desperation. Not who, the voice corrected with a chilling satisfaction. What? The realization gripped his gut like ice. You want us to sacrifice a piece of ourselves. Exactly. The shadows growled back with glee. Surrender part of your light, and I will grant you knowledge to escape the night. No, Emma breathed, backing away. No, we can't stop. Mark's hand shot out to halt her. What's more dangerous, giving up a part of ourselves or letting this darkness consume us entirely? I can't, Kyle stammered, his voice fading into pure panic, the weight of what they faced crashing down like a wave. I can't let go, we have to figure this out together. Lisa urged, but the shadows shifted restlessly, as if stirring at the burgeoning conflict of their minds. The darkness responded with a shattering roar, shaking the walls. Together you are stronger, but divided you will fall. With a sudden whoosh, the shadows surged forward, dragging at their limbs, clawing for their essence, each shadow a whisper trying to pull them apart. Mark felt their strength waning in the chaos. I want he gritted his teeth, I want let it take me. The shadows hissed in frustration. Make your choice. Before the dawn takes all that you hold dear. Time was slipping through their fingers, a cruel trick of fate trapping them in a loop of horror. A blinding light flickered somewhere above, teasing them with an offer of escape. Mark, what if we refuse? Emma's fear-stricken gaze met his. His heart raced. Then we fight. Fight what? Lisa whispered, the shadows encroaching, hungry for the light they all but extinguished. Fight the darkness. He urged, determination solidifying within him. As the chorus of whispers crescendoed into a deafening roar, something deep inside Mark ignited a primal instinct to push back against the void. And just as he prepared to scream out in defiance, the ground beneath them trembled violently, unraveling the last threads of their group. Shadows crumbled, and in that moment, he knew everything had just changed. Together? Or apart? The voice teased one last time. Before Mark could answer, they dissolved into vapor, the weight of nauseating uncertainty pulling them in different directions. The last thing he saw was the gleam of new opportunities ahead and the chilling realization that every choice carried a cost. What would they sacrifice to stand against the darkness? And what truths lay beyond their decision? Mark blinked, and when his eyes opened again, he found himself alone. The chilling shadows that had swarmed around him were gone, leaving an unsettling silence that echoed through a sprawling, empty corridor. He took a step forward, the cold linoleum beneath his feet sending a jolt of anxiety up his spine. Emma? Kyle? Lisa? His voice felt flimsy, barely holding together in the oppressive quiet. No response. Just the distant whisper of the wind outside, rattling the shuttered windows. He pressed forward, heart racing. The air felt different, pressing down, saturated with unspoken fears. Each passing moment stretched painfully, as if wrapped in thickening thread. A flicker ahead drew his eye, a dim light seeping from an ajar door. The room felt alive, vibrating with a sinister hum. Moving cautiously, he reached the door, an urge to push it open clawing at him. He paused, hand hovering on the knob. What if it's a trap? The thought twisted in his mind, but the image of his friends lost in the darkness pushed him forward. With a deep breath that quivered, he slipped inside. The room smelled stale, like hidden decay. A lone bulb swung overhead, illuminating a small table cluttered with old, dusty items, a cracked mirror, a rusted key, and a torn notebook that seemed to pulsate with an unseen energy. He reached for it, the pages brittle against his fingers. Survive the night, a line read, followed by scrawled entries in frenzied letters. Each note was sent back from the brink of madness. They knew they'd become one with it, one entry concluded, the handwriting shaky and frantic. He flipped through, piecing together the horrifying tales of those who had come before him. They too had been swept into this darkness, forced to confront a choice like his own. Desperation clawed at his throat. What had those sacrifices looked like? What cost did they pay, and did they escape? Suddenly, the room trembled. Shadows coalesced, swirling around him, whispering grotesque secrets in a cacophony of voices. What did you find, Mark? A voice hissed tauntingly, echoing like 1,000 lost souls. Did you uncover the truth? Or are you too afraid to sacrifice? Eyes wide, he stumbled back, a chill wrapping around him as realization dawned. The whispers grew louder, mutating into a ghastly symphony of laughter and despair. Face it. Facing the unknown is part of the game. Mark slammed the notebook shut. I want to play your game. His voice shook, but resolve swelled inside him like a small flame. Ah, but the time is running out, the shadows replied, a low rumble vibrating the walls. You must choose. Will you join the others? Or will your light fade forever? Mark's heart seized in panic. He thought of Emma's terrified face, Kyle's shattered voice, Lisa's fierce determination. He couldn't let them become another skeleton among the shadows. He stepped to the edge of the room and turned back, taking a stand. I'll fight. I won't give in to you. Where are my friends? Tell me. The shadows laughed, a cruel, mocking sound that echoed through the room, scraping against his sanity. Oh, sweet boy, to find them, you must find yourself. Offer what you're willing to lose. As the darkness began to close in, swirling around him like a storm, a flicker of hope surged. He remembered the gleam he saw earlier, a path not yet taken. Light. There was light, he thought, dread and determination warring within him. I'll sacrifice my fear. With that thought ignited, he pressed further into the room, refusing to let the darkness take him. But at that moment, the shadows lunged, a wave of darkness swallowing him whole. Will it be enough, Mark? Will it keep you whole? As the world around him twisted and morphed, he knew only one thing: each choice led to another. Every path had a cost. And somewhere lurking amidst the chaos, his friends awaited their fate, caught in the grasp of darkness. Would he find them, or would he, too, succumb to the shadows? Each heartbeat resonated with unanswered questions. Uncertainty hung thick. Mark's breath quickened as he prepared to confront the abyss. Once more. What truth awaited him beyond the darkness? The shadows crashed around him, suffocating and thick, swirling like a tempest of despair. Mark's pulse quickened, each heartbeat hammering in his ears. He had to find a way through this chaos. The phrase "sacrifice your fear" echoed in his mind, but what did that even mean? He closed his eyes, willing the tempest around him to recede. In the darkness behind his eyelids, he pictured the light he'd seen, the doorframe shimmering faintly, a promise of salvation. He inhaled deeply, trying to grasp onto that last flicker of hope. "I won't let you break me," he shouted, his voice bold against the deafening chaos. But the whispering intensified, mocking him. Fear is illusion, and what lies within is truth. Mark needed clarity. His friends were counting on him. Desperation sharpened his focus. He groped through the darkness, reaching for anything solid. His fingers brushed against the rough wood of the table where he'd found the notebook. It provided a brief anchor in the swirling void. "Listen to me, Mark," a new voice crooned, soft and inviting. It curled around him, seductive like smoke. "What if you have to give something more than just fear? What if it's your memories? Your resolve?" "No." He spat, summoning every ounce of willpower. "I know who I am. I won't give that up." Yet as he stood firm, the shadows transformed, morphing into unsettling shapes that flickered at the edges of his vision. Faces shaped by anguish twisted within the gloom. "This is a cycle," they murmured, a chilling harmony. "You can't escape. You must join us." They reached for him, elongating their shadows like tendrils hungry for flesh. Mark shuddered, stepping backward out of instinct. The movements felt like quicksand, trying to pull him into its depths. Panic surged. "Emma! Kyle! Lisa!" He screamed, desperation shifting his tone from defiance to pleading. In the echo of his voice, he heard a distant reply. "Mark!" A voice called back, weak and trembling. "Emma!" Without thinking, he stepped toward the sound, banishing the shadows threatening to ensnare him. The whispers shrieked in protest, but he pressed through, guided by the flickering hope of her voice. "Mark!" The voice broke, choked with fear. "Help us!" Visions of what she must be enduring tore at him. Images rushed back, laughter shared, plans made, all snatched away. Determination surged anew. "Where are you?" "Follow the light." In that moment, a sudden brightness peeked through the shifting darkness, a small shaft of luminescence breaking the suffocating grip around him. Instinctively, he moved toward it. As he drew closer, he heard the clanking of metal, a door creaking open somewhere nearby, its sound beckoning him further. The shadows shrieked louder, desperate now, claws frantically grasping at his limbs, the tug of the dark weighing down on him. "You can't leave. You are one of us." The aura of light pulsed like a heartbeat, wrapping around him, igniting courage deep within. "You're not a part of me," Mark roared, as he plunged forward, tearing free of their grasp. The bright glow enveloped him, illuminating the space like daytime. He burst into another room, heart racing. The light stretched across the walls, revealing grotesque paintings of twisted faces in pain, and a single window shining brightly as if hopeful. And there, on the floor, lay a frail figure, Lisa, bound by eerie chains that glowed darkly in contrast to the light surrounding Mark. Her eyes fluttered open, wide with horror. "You must leave. Don't fall for it." "What do you mean?" he gasped, moving instinctively to her side, the afflictive chains echoing suffering as he got closer. "The light isn't safe. It's their trap. You must." But before she could finish, the door burst open behind him. Shadows flooded in like a raging tide, consuming the flickering light all around. Their inhuman laughter reverberated off the walls, louder and more threatening than before. Mark realized he wasn't just fighting for himself anymore. He was fighting for Lisa. For all of them. "Fight!" he shouted, seizing the rusted key from the table before him. "We'll break these chains. Together." But as he turned to Lisa, the shadows closed in, overwhelming him again. "Will you save her, or will you let the fear consume you entirely?" Every breath felt heavier, marked by the weight of their choices. Mark stood at the precipice, a desperate choice looming before him. Would he let the shadows have them, or would he push back and confront the dark? The terror escalated. The shadows' embrace tightened. He had only moments to decide. "What truth will you unveil, Mark?" The darkness beckoned, a menacing whisper promising to reveal everything and take everything. Mark's heart pounded painfully in his chest, reverberating like a drum calling him to battle. He could feel the weight of the shadows, thick and suffocating. Their laughter clawed at his sanity, wrapping around his throat, squeezing tighter with every passing second. "Stay strong," he muttered to himself, knuckles white around the rusty key. "Mark!" Lisa screamed, her voice cracking, echoing the terror around them. "You have to trust me. The chains are stronger when you're afraid." He swallowed hard, memories of their carefree days flooding him, a life that felt like a distant dream. "I won't let you down," he promised, though the doubt gnawed at him, sharp and bitter. But as he focused on her, the shadows swirled faster. They lunged at him, dark tendrils reaching for his mind, whispering promises of safety if he would only surrender. "Together, you will understand," they taunted, the taint of their breath chilling his skin. "Embrace the truth, Mark." "No." He roared against the cacophony. His only focus was Lisa. "The light. We need the light." He darted forward, desperation fueling his legs. Lisa's chains rattled, vibrating through the chilling air. For a moment, the shadows hesitated, watching him with beady, glimmering eyes, as if weighing his resolve. "Help me, Mark, please," Lisa begged, her voice trembling beneath the weight of despair. Mark's pulse raced as he knelt beside her. The chains glowed, pulsating with an unearthly energy, almost alive. He glanced at the rusted key, its jagged edges gleaming beneath the brief flashes of light. He jammed it into the lock on her chains, twisting desperately. But no matter how hard he pushed, they wouldn't budge. "It's no use," he shouted, panic rising like bile in his throat. The shadows danced closer, their laughter shrill and mocking. "You think you can escape? You're bound by more than chains. You're trapped in a cycle of despair that feeds off your fear." Mark's breath hitched, a sudden chill coursed through him. The faces of twisted anguish from the paintings surged back, their wails melding into an anguished hymn that throbbed in his chest. "This is all there is," they said. "You cannot fight what you truly are." Mark gritted his teeth, clenching the key tighter. "I won't give up. Not now." With every ounce of will, he turned the key again, a surge of strength blasting through him. The latch snapped, and the chains clattered to the ground. Lisa's eyes widened, hope igniting within her. "You did it." But we must hurry. Before she could finish, the shadows lunged, clawing at them with renewed fury. "You're forever ours." They roared, leaping toward him, hungry for despair. No! Mark shouted, stepping in front of Lisa, his body instinctively shielding her from the onslaught. Summoning all of his fear, he surged toward the door bathed in warmth, adrenaline drowning out the icy grip of dread. You want to take us? With a swift motion, he threw himself and Lisa towards the beckoning light. But as they plunged into the spot where the light beckoned, it flickered violently, a strobe of effulgent brightness fighting against the dark. Mark! Lisa cried, her voice piercing the chaos. The shadows shrieked, snaking around them like a whip. As he grasped Lisa's hand, the shadows tightened their grip, dragging them back with clammy fingers. True sacrifice lies ahead. Are you ready to lose everything? They hissed, their voices entwining in a symphony of terror. No! Mark screamed, his voice a raw whisper battling against the darkness. I want my life back. As the chains of despair rattled again, Mark realized their connection ran deeper than fear. This was about confronting the unknown within himself. The shadows altered their attack, transforming into mirrors reflecting his doubts and regrets. What if he wasn't strong enough? What if they truly were destined to be trapped forever? He slammed his eyes shut, blocking out the visions, clutching tighter to Lisa's hand. We're escaping this together. He breathed, inhaling courage. The walls trembled and groaned, darkness shifting like the grip of night. But just as the light tried to envelop them, something terrible roared, a guttural sound rising from the depths beyond the door. Mark, Lisa whispered, her voice now a melody tinged with dread. What if the light isn't the escape? The tremors intensified, and the shadows shrieked a chorus of despair, echoing through the hollow space. Mark's blood ran cold. What if it's a trap? The door began to close, and a heavy thud reverberated through the room. Mark's heart raced as the decision loomed. Would he risk everything for light that could be false? The shadows writhed, grinning hungrily. You can't hide, you belong to the dark. And as they seemed to encircle him one last time, Mark braced himself at the doorway, teetering between light and dark, unsure what lay ahead. What truth awaited them on the other side? With a final shudder, Mark felt the weight of the darkness pressing closer, its icy fingers raking past his skin like a blade. The air grew thick with the pungent scent of mold and decay, it clawed at his lungs. What are we going to do? Lisa gasped, her voice barely a whisper, drowned out by the growing screams of the shadows. Mark couldn't answer. Time twisted around them. The heavy door creaked involuntarily, narrowing the light further, dark veins rippling around its edges. The whispers returned, more frantic now, shrieking in multiple voices. You cannot trust the light, Mark. It holds the truth of your failures. His mind reeled. Each word was a weight, digging into his chest, wrapping around his heart. He glanced at Lisa's face, so pale, etched with fear. We have to move, now. He shouted, desperation fueling his every word. They turned as the shadows lunged, leaping through the dimness with wild eyes. Run! He yelled, pulling Lisa along, dragging her toward the dwindling light. The corridor stretched endlessly, each step felt like wading through sludge. The haunting laughter echoed behind them, each murmur laced with malice. It grew louder, closer. You think you can escape this nightmare? We are everywhere. The shadows taunted, scattering into shapes more grotesque with each beat of Mark's heart. Suddenly, the light flickered violently one last time and died. Darkness crashed down like an avalanche. The very air crackled with electricity, making his skin prickle. They stumbled to a halt. Mark! Lisa's voice quivered, the panic unmistakable. What do we do now? Mark closed his eyes, willing his mind to calm. But buried beneath the terror was the familiar spark of anger. We keep going. He took a deep breath, forcing the fear aside. If they were going to survive, he needed to harness that anger. But where was the light? The invisible walls seemed to shift like currents in a tempest, disorienting them. He groped around for anything to give him confidence, anything to fight with. His fingers brushed against a cold, smooth object. What was it? He opened his eyes, revealing an old lantern, rusted and cracked. Could it work? I don't know if it will help, he muttered, his heart hammering as he fumbled for a way to ignite it. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed through the corridor, making them both jump. The shadows moved closer, a glimmer of shapes swirling around them, twisting as if they were gathering strength. In one desperate motion, he struck the match, and flame burst to life. A golden glow erupted from the lantern, illuminating the grotesque forms around them. The shadows recoiled, hissing as the light touched their dark skin. "Keep it close," Lisa shouted, her eyes wide with hope, mirroring the faint tendrils of bravery winding through Mark's heart. As the light pushed back against the darkness, the laughter turned to wails. It was like fire against a horde of hungry wolves. They fought against the illumination, but it was futile. Mark could feel the pulses of fear retreating. "We can do this," he shouted as they pressed forward, each step a battle against the shadows' howling anguish. But then, just as their path began to clear, the shadows erupted into a torrential wave. Mark stumbled backwards, desperation clawing at his throat. "Go!" He yelled at Lisa, but she was frozen, her face pale with disbelief. "Mark!" she screamed, horror flooding her eyes as the shadows spiraled into darkness, morphing into a swirling storm. "What if we make it worse?" That doubt slipped into his mind again. What if the light itself changes everything? As the howling intensified, a sharp crack echoed through the cavernous space, splitting the air with bone-chilling finality. In that moment, everything halted. Mark halted, staring into the center of the swirling black vortex, which had become a tumult of human faces, screams frozen mid-expression, mouths wide open in eternal horror. "What are they?" he whispered, trembling as the dark mass pulsed and throbbed, flickering like a heartbeat. And then, from that vortex, a chilling whisper rippled through the air. Low and drawn out, "You sought the truth but you invited your greatest terror." Mark felt the ground tremble beneath him, the universe shuddering with unseen power. "Mark, what do we do?" Lisa's voice was a fragile thread. Everything spun, and he fought to find a grip on his sanity. What if revealing the darkness brought unbearable consequences? And as the shadows writhed closer, someone louder inside Mark whispered a single awful truth: they could be trapped forever. Mark stood at the precipice of despair, the air heavy with uncertainty. The faces swirling in that black vortex stared back at him, lost souls bearing witness to his struggle, their horror a silent scream of terror and warning. "No, I can't let us end up like that," he thought, his heart racing as adrenaline surged. "Mark!" Lisa shouted again, pulling him back to reality, her voice strained with fear. "We can't let it draw us in." He turned to her, eyes blazing with determination. "You're right. We want to become part of this darkness." With the lantern held high, he could feel its warmth pushing against the suffocating shadows, their angry hisses swirling furiously, trying to drown him out. "It's afraid of the light. Then we need to use it." Emma's voice, now dancing through his mind, ignited hope. He could almost see her small frame beside him, urging him on. In that instant, inspiration struck. What if bringing the light to those souls could break this curse? Mark shouted, squaring his shoulders as clarity settled over him, a guiding beacon. "Maybe showing them the way out is how we escape too." He glanced at Lisa, her expression shifting from dread to determination. "Let us do it," she said, her voice steady and firm. They pushed past the darkness, the lantern glowing like a guiding star. "Fight back!" Mark shouted as they forged ahead into the storm. The faces began to swarm closer, mouths still agape, trapped in a tableau of despair. "Embrace the light!" Mark yelled, refusing to back down. The shadows crept forward, but he thrust the lantern into the abyss, illuminating the despairing faces. You're not lost. You don't have to stay here. As the golden light shone brighter, the expressions of the trapped souls began to shift from horror to curiosity. Their whispered echoes filled the air, trembling, wavering as fear turned into realization. Help us follow the light. Lisa urged as they held steady, grounding their presence in the surging darkness. With each beacon of light they cast, the shadows squealed and recoiled, fear transforming into rage. It was a wave of clash between light and dark, one that they could feel vibrating through their bones. You can escape. Mark shouted, pouring every ounce of conviction into his voice. Join us, and leave this nightmare behind. Suddenly, several faces in the swirling mass shifted, moving forward, eyes wide with desperation. They reached out as if drawn to the light, floating detached from the nightmare, specters of lost hope chasing freedom. For each light they found, their figures grew less shadowy, more defined. The shadows screamed in fury, lashing out, pulling at the light's edges. You can't save them. They are ours. The darkness twisted violently, inciting chaos that threatened to collapse the world around them. Then we fight. Mark shouted, resolve swelling within him, pushing the lantern higher, illuminating the shifting faces. We will not let fear take us. Strengthened by their unity, Mark and Lisa pressed on, feeling clarity coalesce in their grasp as the whispering grew louder, a desperate chant begging to escape. The faces pressed closer to the glow, their fear mingled with anticipation, longing for release. And then, with a titanic roar, the darkness surged, erupting wildly as if unwilling to let go. Shadows rushed toward them, consuming everything in their path. Close your eyes. Mark screamed, turning the lantern back towards their own chests, channeling courage instead. Don't let it take who you are. In that moment, clarity ripped through the chaos. They weren't fighting the shadows, they were diagnosing their own fears buried deep within. Mark could feel the weight of his regrets, the pain of lost love, all pieces that made up him. I know you're scared. He shouted into the dark storm, voice unwavering as the lantern's light pulsed softer, like a steady heartbeat. But together, we can break the cycle. Together, we light the way. With one last push, he swung the lantern full force. The light burst forth, consuming everything, merging with the anguished faces of the lost souls. Intertwining like strands of light in a cosmic dance. The shadows erupted with a violent scream, but it was too late. As the light swept outward, encircling every inch, the vacuum of darkness imploded, shattering into particles, releasing the lost souls into the glow. They could feel the air expand around them, filling with warmth as fear's grip finally loosened. Come on, let us get out. Mark yelled, reaching for Lisa's hand, his heart racing with unity and relief. As they bolted forward, every specter followed, flowing into the light as dawn approached, breaking the endless night. Bursting through a door frame, they stumbled into the twilight, golden dawn painting the world anew. Mark gasped for breath, the fresh air filling his lungs, warmth across his face. Emma rushed to him, her small arms wrapping tightly around his waist. You did it, Daddy. She cheered, eyes shimmering with relief. Tears pricked at Mark's eyes as he knelt down, enveloping her in his embrace. We did it, he whispered, emotions flooding over him like a river bursting its dam. But as the sun lifted higher, the gust of the wind swept through, reminding him of the shadows that still lurked within the motel. Not everyone made it, he said, glancing back at the silhouette of the structure looming behind them. He could sense the darkness still clawing where the light struggled to break through. We'll fight for them, Lisa replied, squeezing his hand. We'll make sure their stories are heard. Mark straightened, fire igniting within him. Together. With fresh determination sparkling in their eyes, they stepped forward, towards the road that would lead them back. Not just as survivors, but as warriors prepared to confront the darkness, knowing hope could indeed overcome despair. The forest of shadows that had once enveloped them began to dissipate, replaced by the embrace of a new day, one that would be filled with the light of their own resilience, and the promise that they would never again let fear consume their spirits. And as they walked on, hand in hand, ready to face whatever awaited and fight for those still lost, the sun rose like a redemptive beacon, declaring victory over the haunted night. Mark turned once more to glance back. That place would never be forgotten, but it would be rewritten, transformed into a tale of survival and hope, forever etched into the lives of those who dared to storm the darkness. That first morning light ignited a fierce desire to share their story with the world. And in that moment, he understood, true power came when you faced the dark, not for the sake of light alone, but for every story wishing to be told again. Now it's your turn. You need to subscribe now and save your place for our next exclusive stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help us reach more soulmates out there. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this epic conclusion. We want to know what you think. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this journey. Let us spread the light together.